Cody, catch me up. It's been a minute since we've talked, first of all, so it's good to have you back in the studio. I feel like we swapped seats. Usually you sit here, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this seat. My part's on the left side of my head.
Got it.
Yeah. It's like that new thing going on Instagram where people are like, show me your profile. Now the other side. And they can't turn to the other side.
Oh.
You haven't seen that? It's a joke. It's like I like one side of my face, the other side's okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Get my good side.
Yeah, I think I have two good sides.
But you got the part on that side. You like being on that side.
Yeah.
It's cool.
We're good. So catch me up. It's been a minute since you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, you've taken over the RX division at Active Life. And one of the things that I find gives me the most peace, frankly, is when you're in charge of things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're not only my mom's favorite podcast guest, you're also a person who I know thinks things through all the way, wants to do well with them, experiences ups and downs, and you allow yourself to feel the up and you allow yourself to feel the down, but you disallow yourself from staying in the up or from staying in the down. And so I never worry that like, oh man, Cody might be in one of those ruts again. How do I shake him out of it? And I value that a lot. And because of my faith in your ability to do that, I try to be as hands-off as possible with the things that are in your responsibility, unless you come to me and say, hey, what do you think of this? Which I appreciate when you do that too. Not because it involves me, but because it demonstrates that you don't think you have all of the answers to all of the questions.
Right.
You've most recently taken over the RX division of the company, which is the first division that we ever had. So in 2015, I think it was, I started working with people who were my patients in my clinical practice who would tell me, how much does this cost and how long do I need to be here for? Which sucks, by the way, to hear, because what they're saying is, I'd rather not pay for this, and I'd rather not even be here, but I have to. Well, that sucks. Where would you rather be? Anywhere? The gym? Okay. And it became obvious to me at the time, the people who I was seeing were making the decision to come to my clinic instead of going to work out. And they were coming to my clinic in large part because they had lost the ability to work out without pain. So we started off as a company who helped people get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym from anywhere in the world. And we did that extremely well. We still do that extremely well, I think. We've helped thousands of people with that. And I'm curious how that's evolved to now. Because I know it's evolved. I see the people coming through and I'm like, this is not someone who I would have been able to sign up, interested in signing up, or even would have had the attention of 6 years ago. So how has that division of our company, the remote one-to-one service division, evolved?
It's evolved in a lot of ways. And I imagine the most significant one is it's become an uncompromising service that allows the people who really need it to come to us and regain the ability to say yes.
When you say uncompromising, what do you mean by that?
Uncompromising means we are not, internally, we're not going to deviate from our values to keep or gain a client. For the individual that we're working with, it's living a life of freedom without compromise. And here's the perfect example of that. Okay, so if we go back to the saying yes thing, think of when we were younger and somebody asked you if you wanted to go to the beach or you wanted to go on a hike or you wanted to go on that vacation or that trip, and you said yes without fully understanding what it was, where it was at, or how you were going to get there. And now you default to no. And there can be a lot of reasons that you default to no, but if we dig all the way down to the bottom of it, it's because there's some level of fear there. You're afraid that either that thing's going to bother you so bad that you have to take a pill just to get through the next day. You might have to take some time off. You can't keep up with the people that are going in the way that you would want to, right? Or God forbid, you're going to make things worse. We help people get back that ability and reclaim the ability to say yes. That's what I mean when I say we help people live a life of freedom without compromise.
I like that. The thing I like about that is that it feels more encompassing than get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym, which we still do.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels different than peak performance, like athletic performance, six-pack abs, big shoulders. It feels different than that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
I know how we do that in person.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the process that we use to help somebody do that online?
Okay, so we can start to touch on the process a little bit. So it's going to begin with us going through and understanding really, really well where you're at, where you want to go. That's the discovery phase. That's the assessing phase. The beautiful thing we have about this company is, at least in service delivery, which is what we're talking about here, that process is similar in person and remotely. Mm-hmm. We start off by assessing. That starts with the discovery call, so we can learn if we're the best fit to be able to help you. If the answer to that is yes, we can start to craft the how. Mm-hmm. So from a very basic process standpoint, we've started by introducing that full discovery call, which we had before and not as in-depth as we're going now. That leads us to an assessment that actually happens on your first call, the onboarding call, where we're going to spend 90 minutes going through the joint-by-joint movement assessment live with your professional, uncovering any additional questions that they might have about the findings from the discovery call, and making sure that you're finally set up for success, moving forward with the rest of the assessing phase, which we'll do remotely. Mm-hmm. That's just how the process has changed from the very beginning.
So what I'm hearing you say there is that in person, we have somebody who reaches out for a discovery call. You meet with them to discover if you think we can help them and if we want to help them. And if they would like it. Mm-hmm. Yes, no decision tree. No, we make a referral to somebody else. Yes, we invite them in for a consultation. Online, we're inviting them proverbially in for a consultation. It's going to be a remote service, and that's a live session, or is that they're doing things on their own and then reporting back to us?
It used to be doing things on your own and reporting back. Now it starts with a live session because the feedback loop is so much faster. We can actually see on the other end of the screen, we can see the way that you're moving through the thing. We can see the small nuance and detail, and we can provide immediate coaching, cue, and correcting feedback. We can provide context that might not exist, and there's a lag in you recording the video and uploading it and me getting back to you.
Yeah, I like that. For me, feels uncompromising in a way that makes sense to me. Because when we first started the service, what I would describe is it was the Wild West. Like there weren't even programming softwares yet. I remember when Casey Jenks, who ended up founding Fitbot, which then became True Coach, which then got acquired, posted in a Facebook group, hey, I've been building this software to help coaches program more efficiently. Anybody want to beta test it? And I was one of the first 3 people beta testing it. I was like, this is amazing. I was using spreadsheets, and I'm not good on spreadsheets. And it was, at that point, my brain was going to, how do I make this easier for me? How do I have this occupy less of my time? And ultimately, when I started hiring staff, how do I have this occupy less of the staff's time and make it simpler for us? And if you really boil that back, like you pull back, pull back, pull back, why am I doing that? It's because I was afraid to charge what I would need to charge, to dedicate the time I would need to dedicate, to do it in the way that I believe would be best. So I compromised on best. And I met the highest value of best that I felt comfortable delivering within my values, and the price that I felt people would be willing to pay. And what I'm hearing you describe is that now we've said we're not interested in compromising on any of the process. And so we have to give everything that we would want somebody to give to our mom if we were signing our mom up for their service, knowing full well that it's all that they have.
Somebody that you care about. Would you refer someone that you deeply care about, your wife, your husband, your parent, would you refer them to this service?
I would now. And it's interesting because in the past I wouldn't have. And not because it wasn't good, but because they didn't fit it.
Sure.
So maybe you can touch on that in a moment. But you know what? Touch on that now, and then we can go back to the process. You tell me. Should we touch on that now, or should we go back to the process? Because what I want to be able to do is I want to ask you questions about that help me understand because sometimes I understand things, but I don't understand why. Why do I feel comfortable referring my mom? Why did I legitimately refer my mother-in-law? Where in the past I would have said, not really for you. Do you think we're better off, right? Let's stay on the process because I think that will evaluate it. And then we can talk about who, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
You talked about a discovery call. I think that's something that's unclear to most people. It's even in some ways hard for me to explain when somebody says, so what's different about the discovery call and the assessment or the consult? Why have both?
Got it. Okay. So they answer two unique questions. The discovery call answers the if. It's us asking all of the questions necessary to determine if we believe we're the best fit to help. Okay, the assessment, the consultation, the thing that happens next, that first onboarding session, that's all about starting to craft the how. Right? What I imagine most companies, and I imagine we did this in the beginning, before we got a ton of clarity around, are we the best fit to actually help this person? We started thinking about how we were going to help them.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake because we don't know yet. That's the space that's created in the discovery call. And if we get to the end of that conversation and we realize that we are not the best person to help you ethically, and it's our obligation, and we do this, we will tell you that we're not the best person to help you. And we will do our best to find the company or the individual who is and make the referral. Now, if we are the best person to help you, that's the whole purpose of that first call. Then we go, is this an alignment for you? It's an alignment for us. We get two yeses, yes and yes. Then we move into starting to craft the how.
Okay. How often does it happen that somebody reaches out, schedules a call, and it's not a good, there's no reason to move on?
Much less than it used to. And it still happens sometimes because people want solutions. They want help. And we're the type of company who's going to help them, even if it's not by working with us. We're going to help them find the answer that they need. You know, things that would make someone not the perfect fit to work with us would be that they are actually in need of a medical practitioner. They need someone who's going to be able to work with them in that capacity. Okay. They might also have a really low training age and need to work with somebody one-on-one and in person. They might also not be interested in our process, as in the education piece of our process. It's one of the value propositions of working with us is the education and the principles that we hold in education. Because look, we're not the type of company that wants you to be a client of ours forever, remotely or in person. Now, you might decide that you want to continue to be a client of ours forever, and that's not because you need to. And what happens most of the time with online coaching, in my experience and in my opinion, is they create a dependent system. There's never the teaching that needs to happen so that you can learn how to do this independently, autonomously, and never need to come back to us.
Yeah. I think the important nuance there is the needing to. You know, the idea that, look, we have clients we've had for years who solved the first, second, third, fourth, fifth goal that they came to us for when they thought they were only coming for one. And they would be they'd be totally fine to go do things on their own. And they choose to keep coming back. What you're describing is, if I'm not mistaken, the alternative to that would be, what are you going to do without us? How are you going to figure this out on your own? It's like, well, we taught you how to figure this out on your own, so we don't deal with that. Okay. So into the consultation or the assessment, another interesting thing that's coming up for me is the way the process used to work. A way to save us time was you got an extensive questionnaire. What equipment do you have access to? How long have you been feeling this? Who have you worked with? What have you tried? Why did that work? Why didn't that work? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Who's your support system? All of these were asked as questions that were answered like paperwork. And if I think about, like, one of the reasons I remember us deciding to stop doing this is when you think about going to a doctor's office, the worst part is the paperwork. I'm like, how many times do I have to sign my name and give you the date and tell you what's wrong? Can it just be like, you ask me these questions on the phone and it's done? It even just happened for me. I recently got a vasectomy, right? And I fill out all this documentation online. I'm like, all right, good. Like, at least that's out of the way now. Not my favorite, but better than showing up and getting paperwork. And then I show up and they gave me paperwork. I'm like, why wasn't this online? Why are we having, it's the worst. And so that was a way of reducing some of the friction for the client and bringing that into our discovery and into our consult, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, my thought process was coming at it from a slightly different angle. That what you're describing there. And then do the assessments and send us the video. That was a way to make it easier and better for us.
That's what I mean, yeah.
What we really tried to look at with restructuring this department is how do we make it better for them, regardless of the extra time, effort, and energy that it'll take us, because that's our job, is to pour into our clients.
Yeah. Well, the more I thought about it, as we were in mid-transition to do all of this, I was still looking at the world as if we were the only people doing this. And we've trained hundreds of people how to do this. So we're not anymore.
Right.
Don't be fooled by imitation companies. They're not doing what we're talking about. But the people we've mentored to be able to do this, the ALPs on our map, by the way, activelifeprofessional.com, find a professional near you, shameless plug. Those are people we've developed to be able to do this. And they're going to put you through a similar process. So we don't have to be for all of the people who need this anymore. We have this army of pros out in the world who help people like we do. And that helped me because when I was thinking about if we do all of this, we can't do it for the price we used to do it at. And I want there to be a more affordable option out there for people because not everyone can afford what we charge. Well, we have hundreds of people we've developed to do this who aren't going to have all of the bells and whistles that we have, who are going to do a great job by their client. So I felt better about saying, okay, yeah, it's the best or nothing.
The market evolved.
Yeah. Okay. So they get through the consult. They're a fit. How do we tell them exactly what they need after 90 minutes? That sounds a little bit short.
Right. So what we're going to do in that 90 minutes is we're going to continue the discovery of findings, figure out anything else that we might need to learn. We're then going to be able to provide, after the assessment, a range because we understand the key areas of focus, or at least some of them that we would start with. And that also is going to influence the things we'll test next. Then we're able to make a reasonable, based on the data, based on all of the clients that we've worked with in the past, the thousands of them, we're able to say, okay, based on everything we know, it's going to take us somewhere between this and this to get through the develop phase. Now remember, our phases are assess, develop, ascend, and freedom. The purpose of the assessing phase is to figure out what you need. How we help you. The purpose of the develop phase is for you to gather all of those tools, skills, resources, get the education, learn all of the things that you need to learn to successfully become the type of person who can get to the top of this mountain. That's the develop phase. Now we're going to start to resolve some of the issues and concerns. We're going to start to accomplish some of the goals. And what often happens for clients at the end of this phase is like, I feel better than I've ever felt before. That's when we know, as professionals, you're at the greatest risk because you feel great.
Right.
You're like, it's time for me to go start doing all the things that I want to do. We push past our capacity and we end up back in the same position. We've had clients in the past who stop working with us after 4 to 6 months because they feel better than they ever had. 4 to 6 months later, they're back.
I see that as our failure when that happens. I know there's two tangoing there. And that I'm constantly beating myself up about how could we communicate better to that person before that happens.
Yes. Part of what we're doing now and having the established process and setting the tone from the beginning is to help with that. And then reminding and continuing the communication throughout. Because often what happens is it gets dropped in the beginning and then we don't really revisit the purpose of the next phase or the purpose of the phase that we're in an intentional way. Right. So another evolution and adaptation to our process after the onboarding call, weekly, you're going to meet with your professional virtually.
So let's pause there for a second because I want to ask you about this. When I'm listening to it as someone who's never been through it before, what I'm starting to think is I've heard companies talk about the benefit of what they do is that all the sessions are live. You're always with a trainer so they can see everything that you're doing through the computer, like remote personal training. And then I've seen people who are like, the benefit of our company is everything's completely asynchronous. So you can do it whenever you want. And your assigned trainer is going to come back and read all the things that you wrote about or watch your videos and then update it. So it's always convenient for you. Mm-hmm. Where do we land on that? Live, everything is a live training session and everything is asynchronous.
Most of your program you're going to execute remotely. As in, you're going to have the program given to you. You're going to have all of the information that you need to do it confidently and competently. Mm-hmm. You're going to get the videos if needed, the explanation as needed, the reps, all of those things. They're going to be delivered to you to do at a time that's most convenient for you, because one of the points of friction that gets introduced with this always being a live session is now we have to find the schedule that works for both of us.
Right.
Right.
You said remotely, so I think what you meant by remotely was asynchronously.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to do it asynchronously on your own. Now, weekly, we are going to get together on a call and we're going to review everything that has happened during the week and highlight the things that are coming up. Make sure that anything you have questions on or any irritations, anything that you felt, we're able to unpack live on a call. That call that happens weekly is much more about making sure that you understand the what, the why, and answering any questions that you have than watching you exercise. Mm-hmm. If you have something that you're like, hey, this felt a little weird when I did it, I'm not really sure, we might have you go through the movement in that session so that we can provide any coaching, cueing, or correcting. And it's not a training session. That's not what we're there to do.
Right.
So we're doing that weekly for the first 6 weeks. And then you have the decision, you have the option, and you and your professional discuss this together. Do we continue these calls weekly because that's what you want and that's what you need? Do we go to bi-weekly or a monthly cadence? Mm-hmm. Now, the reason that we allow which one do we want to do here is because we recognize that some people are going to love talking to their professional once a week. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to get to the end of the first 6 weeks and be like, this has been great. I don't think I need the frequency here. I don't need to do this as much. Now, if you decide and we decide together that the best case is you do that bi-weekly or monthly call, you're still receiving every week a full video review of your programming. So your professional is going to put together a video, a Loom, that recaps everything we've done in the current week and highlights what's coming up the next week for you. Mm-hmm. So there's still time and energy that's going in, and it's not just a, hey, good job. It's not just a comment that gets dropped.
Right.
Without any context.
Well, this is where I think some of our big different comes in. I've listened to a lot of podcasts with people who own companies that purport to do what Active Life does. And they talk about how many clients they have and how their retention is this crazy, absurd, like 1%. No one's ever left, which is nonsense. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about how great it is for their staff because their staff is able, in one case, this guy was like, I can pay my coaches up to $400 an hour. I'm like, so you have coaches making $400 an hour working full-time weeks? How do I get a job?
Right.
Right? That's not true. You're a liar. Mm-hmm. Or you're an exaggerator. What's really happening is you have an hour's worth of work per week.
Right.
For that coach. And you do end up paying an aggregate of $400 per hour part-time to somebody who has another full-time job, programs for the clients in your company, however they see fit, isn't held to a standard norm, is working as a general contractor, not as an employee, doesn't have to come to staff meetings with you, and is giving the clients 5 to 10 minutes worth of attention in a given week, writing things like, great job, copy, paste, progress, awesome, nice work, cool. Like, that's not coaching. Mm-hmm. And everybody who works with clients at Active Life is a full-time W-2 employee who is expected to continually develop within our system, is expected to be consistent, is expected to be similar in the way that they would do the same thing as everybody else on staff, and is paid a salary. Mm-hmm. And it's not their job to bring clients into the company. It's our job to make sure that we're bringing good clients into the company and that they are doing a great job servicing them.
Yes.
So they're judged is the wrong word, but their success criteria is the client satisfaction of the people they're working with. And we tell clients before they come in, you should expect the best service you've ever gotten. Mm-hmm. So it's a high bar for them to start with as 5 stars, there were sheets on the bed. Right? Best you've ever gotten is our 5 stars. Or 10 stars, however you want to write it up. It's categorically different than what people are used to.
Agree.
Just wanted to speak to that. And that's why we're often full. Mm-hmm. We're not looking for, we are looking for fewer people who want more thorough service from the kind of people they want to be influenced by. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're not looking to have 1,000 clients.
No.
Who are just kind of doing okay.
Yeah, right. I want it to hurt every time we lose somebody who we shouldn't lose. Mm-hmm. I want to know about it every time we lose somebody we shouldn't lose.
Mm-hmm. Well, what that keeps for the professional too, and the coach-client or the professional-client relationship, is it keeps the ability for us to have high touch.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems with having a book of 100 clients, there's no way you're checking in with every single one of them every single week in the way that you should be.
There was a point in my career I had 83 clients.
Yeah.
I didn't know most of their names.
Sure.
That's the reality. Okay. So we talked about the process of how we help people, and we talked about the idea that affords us the ability to help a wider breadth of people. You mentioned to me before we started that there are really 4 categories of type of person who are a good fit to come and work with us at Active Life in the RX division, which is remote.
Yes.
Who are they?
Well, I wrote these down because I wanted to make sure that I was as accurate as I could be with my language with this and give as much clarity and context around them. So number 1 is the person, the client who wants to understand the what, the why, and the how. They want to know what's happening to their body. She wants to know why this is happening and how to change it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Client number 2 is the person who really needs guardrails. We've worked with this client a few times.
I see those in my head.
Yeah. So this is the client who is used to, they're a high performer and they're used to overwhelming their problems with hard work. This is the person whose discipline is freedom, and they're going to go after it. And they actually need to be told it's okay to slow down.
It's necessary.
Yes. Well, they got to give themselves permission to do it first, and then they can understand that, the reason that I'm still dealing with this thing is because I've just been trying to push through it the whole time.
Yep.
This is the person who, we have a client who he cannot run.
Well, hold on. I want you to give me the 4 examples. I want you to go through the 4 examples.
Okay.
So that we stay on track, and then I'll ask you to describe each of the people.
Okay. So we have the guardrails person. We have the one who overwhelms the problem. We have the what, the why, the how. The third one is the client who needs permission. Mm-hmm. They need permission to live life in a way that's inspiring to them, because most likely they've been told by someone else in a position of authority that, look, this isn't getting any better. It's not getting any worse. So you just have to live with it now.
Mm-hmm. That's basically who we started for.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 4th category.
The 4th category is the optimizer. It's the person who understands, they want to use exercise as the way to help them live a better life outside of the thing. They don't want to spend 10 hours in the gym just to add another 5 pounds to the lift. Mm-hmm. They want to use this. They want to optimize. They're open to feedback. They're open to change as a way to live their best possible life.
Okay. So now I want to repeat them, make sure I got them right. There are 4 categories of people who we work with in the RX division online at Active Life. Category number 1 is the person who wants the what, why, and the how. This is a person whose body is starting to change. They're not keeping up with it anymore, and they want to understand what's happening to my body, why is that happening, and how do I change it?
Yes.
The second person is the hard charger who needs guardrails. This is a person who needs to be told it's okay to slow down, and then when they give themselves permission, understand it's actually necessary that you slow down.
Yep.
They're used to overwhelming their problems with hard work, and that's not going to get them there. The third category is the person who needs permission. The spell has been cast upon them by somebody else that they have to live a life that is limited. They have a diagnosis, they have a condition, whatever it might be, and they're not going to get any better. So this is the best it's going to get used to it.
Yep.
And then the 4th person is the optimizer. This is the person whose not looking to use exercise for the sake of exercise. They are looking to exercise for the sake of living a better life. They want the minimum effective dose, and they want it to be something that they can take with them when they go.
Yes.
Okay. I would love to hear about a person from each of those categories. Like, I want to make it human for me.
Okay. So the what, the why, the how person. We have a client who we've been working with for a few months now. And she came to us because used to be an athlete, had that identity, was a personal trainer, even in the space for 20 years, was excellent at it. Getting a little bit older, some chronic conditions are coming up, and her body is not responding in the way that it used to. She doesn't understand how exercise needs to change for her, how other factors are playing into this feeling of pushing past the capacity line, the physical manifestation of that. So she wants to know what's happening here. Why is this happening? What are all of the variables and all of the factors that are leading into this for me? And then what can I actually do to change it? Because left to their own devices, this type of person, she's going to go and just try to do something and get smashed and need to take 3 or 4 days off. Where working with us in her first week, she was able to exercise 5 times in that week, which she hadn't done in a couple of years up to that point.
Right.
Because what would happen is exactly what we just described. She would go in, have a hard training session, be destroyed for 2 days, finally feel so bad about herself that I need to go in for the next day, goes in, smashes, and that cycle just repeats. So there's a lot of education that goes in with that client, not just exercise, because she's an intelligent human being. She knows how to exercise. We're working on all of the other things, the way that the mind works.
Now, she's a personal trainer for 20 years. I'm confused as to why she wouldn't already know these things.
Maybe she does. Maybe there are pieces of it that she does, right? You and I can speak to this. Sometimes we're our own worst coaches.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not an information problem.
Right. I follow you. So there could be an information problem, and more likely, or just as likely, it's an information problem and a personal accountability execution problem. Okay. Second.
So the second is the guardrails.
Right.
There's the example of this one is the client who came to us because he can squat, he can deadlift, he can box jump, but he can't run. Every time running shows up in the workout, and it's because it bothers his knee so bad that he needs to hobble up and down the stairs afterwards.
This person was a CrossFitter, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's tired of rowing as the substitution when everybody else gets to bike or gets to run. And for him, the words that stuck with me are, I feel limited and I want to live limitless.
Okay.
It's the one thing, running is the one thing that I can't do. And that then starts to extrapolate down into all of the other things that I might have to give up as a result of not doing this thing and not being the type of person that I want to be.
Well, interestingly, that's the person who I relate to the most. And it's the person who I can think of one who we were just talking about who's actually going to be flying in. Right now, if you're listening to this, you don't have to fly in. This is an exclusively remote service for those of you who want it to be. Flying in is significantly more expensive, invasive into your life, obviously, and we think it's extremely high value. But there was a person who reached out who needs help, who was trying to negotiate on the number of days it'd be on site for. Because it was, can we just get it all done in one so I can get back to the other important things? And one of the things I explained to this person was, that is what's actually at the root of your problem. The belief that if we can shrink time on this and do it faster and give it less attention and reverence, that we'll be able to get better or the same results. That is a microcosm of how you're doing a lot of things. And I know that just because you asked me to do that with this. So, no. We're going to do 3 days, and the 3 days of you being on site is just as valuable as the information that we're going to gather and the education that you're going to acquire.
Yes.
Okay. Person 3.
The permission client. So this is the one who most likely This client, she went through physical therapy, multiple rounds of physical therapy.
So you're talking about a real person right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
She went through multiple rounds of physical therapy, was finally discharged because it wasn't getting any better. It wasn't getting any worse. Pain was at a 5 to a 6 out of 10 on a daily basis in the knee, and was told, this is just life now. So figure out how to live with it.
It's so brutal. I can't believe that's still a thing. I mean, I can and I can't. Okay. So why is that? Why is she looking for permission? I'm confused as to what you, not confused. I understand, I think. But I would love for you to articulate how that's a permission client.
Because this client was told from someone in a position of authority that this is your life now. This is as good as it gets. Decided that that was true because the authority told her that it was true, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Right? If you were to go to the doctor, for example, and the doctor were to tell you, hey, you've got this thing going on, and if you lift any more than 55 pounds for the rest of your life, it may be problematic. So don't lift more than 55 pounds.
I had a formative client like that. A woman who came out, there was a reporter who was actually reporting on one of our seminars. And she's like, can I bring a friend? So I'm not there by myself. I said, yeah, of course. Because she was going to participate in the seminar and take notes as she did it. So she brought this friend. And at the time, our seminar included some weightlifting. Not Olympic weightlifting, just like strength balance testing.
Yep.
And the friend was like, I'm going to sit this part out. I said, why? Your movement screen was beautiful. What are you concerned about? Well, I have a herniated disc. And the doctor told me never to lift more than 55 pounds again. And I said, are you in pain day to day right now? She said, no. So when's the last time that you were in pain? Maybe 4 months ago? I said, and you haven't lifted anything above 55 pounds since then? She's like, nope. I said, would you like to? She said, yeah, of course. But like, I don't want to go back to where I was before. I said, okay. If there was ever a room for you to try it in, I'm not pushing you. This is the room. If you would like to, you just come let me know, and I'll help you do it. That's how I'd like to remember it. I was probably much more aggressive with it because I wanted to prove something. But that day she deadlifted 205 pounds for 8 reps without pain. Less than 4 years later, she was trying out for the United States skeleton team in the Olympics. And one of the things that they have to do in part of their qualifying testing is a 1-rep max power clean, which is odd, but right. And she's into other things now also, like highly competitive sports. That's a woman who, if she doesn't end up coming to our seminar, might never lift more than 55 pounds again. That is a horrifying spell that a doctor cast on her.
That's most similar. This person is most similar to the type of client that we started working with, right? The one who wanted to get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym.
Right, because I saw that kind of messaging as bullying, and that triggered me in a way that I was like, oh no, that is not true. We're gonna fix that, and then you can shove it in that doctor's face. That's basically how we started. So yeah, that is a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, the permission client, they need you to lend them some belief that things can be different. And once they have that, like this client, they'll run with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, so the last client type.
The last client's going to be the optimizer. This is the client who read Peter Attia's book in 3 days and offered to give me a book report on it.
Right.
They're looking for the minimum effective dose. They see exercise as a tool to allow them to live a lifestyle that's inspiring to them.
What I find fascinating about this client is I remember when I was doing all of the coaching, and I would think that the clients who I spent more time with, wrote more workouts for, were getting more value from me than the ones who were getting 2 to 3 workouts a week that were 45 minutes long. And the reality is that's not true at all, because I've met the person you're talking about right now, and I've heard her tell us in a room full of people, somebody was graduating and they were excited that they didn't need to come anymore. And she was like, good for you. I don't need to be here, and you'd have to drag me out kicking and screaming. And I thought that was cool because both of those people in that moment were demonstrating getting what they wanted and needed from us. And in this case, it was an in-person client.
Mm-hmm.
But she is somebody who would probably tell us that she's getting more value than we're charging her for. And she comes less than a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that translates to online also.
Yes.
Okay. Am I incorrect in stating that the number one differentiator from a person who would be in person with us from a person who would be online with us is just their ability to do it? So training age.
It's a significant differentiator.
Okay.
And I mean, there's geography.
Sure.
That's important to remember here.
Sure.
Right? Training age is huge. It's also the level of support. I imagine it's the level of support and in-person interaction that you want and need.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're going to be able to do more in person as far as the daily touch, where RX, that individual, has a little more ability to be a self-starter.
Mm-hmm. Can you remember a time when you brought the wrong person in? Like someone we should not have brought on as a client?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've had a couple of instances of this. The first one is going to be that client who not a high enough training age.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we actually had somebody that we enrolled for RX. We went through the onboarding call, which she did really well with. And as soon as it became it's time to do the rest of the assessing phase on your own, we saw a significant drop off, as in zero adherence to it, which we immediately got on a call. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Oh, I don't think I can do this like this. I don't understand how to do it. And we went, crap. Okay, let's find you an ALP, which we did.
That's cool.
We found him an ALP locally to work with because that's exactly what that individual needed.
Okay.
They needed in-person support.
Okay. Is that it? Just one?
That was the first one. We had 3 examples of this. Okay, so the first one is the person who needs that the other one is the person who's not interested in the education or the process. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the client who, when we're starting to layer in things like load versus capacity, rules for pain, terminology, we're starting to have conversations about the root cause of this issue and concern for you being as much about the 6 inches between your ears as it is about what's actually going on with the knee. They're like, no, look, you're not my therapist. You're not my doctor. I just want you to help me fix this by movement, and I'm not interested in that other stuff. Mm-hmm. That's when we go, okay, we did something wrong here. Mm-hmm. We allowed you to become a client without fully understanding what you're going to get out of this and how we work uniquely with people. So in that case, we find them, again, someone else who's just going to deliver the exercise for them, right, because that's what they want and that's what they're most interested in.
Okay. When you're talking about education, and the way I think of our education is it's less go home, watch these long videos, take these tests, and it's more we're going to, yes, some videos. Mm-hmm. And it's more we're going to teach you how to speak a different language so that we can get faster, more lasting, effective results.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of it, right? Understanding the difference between insult, irritation, pain, and injury, for example. Understanding where you should fall on that continuum of irritation and pain. Right. Because we know irritation drives adaptation. The other thing that's a huge component, if we go into the pain, for example, is the mindset. Mm-hmm. It's the story that we tell ourselves about the thing. It's often not the thing that gets us. It's the story that we tell ourselves about the thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can no longer do X, Y, and Z because I have a bad knee. Mm-hmm. Cool. How much longer do you want to keep that story?
Well, what you're talking about right now is the person I was talking to recently who I discussed is flying out. Mm. It was a hamstring issue that's been a hamstring issue for years that I said is not a hamstring issue. It ends up in the hamstring. And yes, there is a verifiable hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. We can MRI, we can see it. But that is the result of the things that we need to solve for. Mm-hmm.
Which we have the capacity to solve for if you're open to solving the problem that way.
Yeah.
right? And again, we default to our process. This is one of the things that we can lean into our process around. We go through that solid assessing phase. We then develop, this is the internal and external confidence and competence, so that you can become the type of person who can successfully get to the top of the mountain, which is the ascend phase.
Right.
It's doing the work. It's making sure that we fully resolve the thing, all in the ambition of getting to the top, so that you can look around and go choose a new mountain, or say, I want to hang out here, enjoy the view, and maintain.
Yeah, throw a tent up.
Right. And like you and I have talked about on many occasions, that's freedom. That's the person who wants to stay. That's the client who said, you're going to have to drag me out of here kicking and screaming. She wants to stay, but doesn't need to. That's our ambition selfishly as a company specifically in the RX department.
Right. Okay. So you gave me 2 different clients who we've enrolled, who we shouldn't have, and we realized along the way, and helped them out. And there was a third, you said, a medical problem.
Yeah. Someone who we identify through the discovery call, because part of the discovery call in that consultative process is screening. We identify that this is actually something you need to see a doctor for.
Would you say this is the one that we error on the least?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's much more tangible, right? It's much more identifiable early on, where the other two, besides the low training age,
right,
it's going to be in a hierarchy. It's going to be, all right, you need a medical practitioner. That's easily identifiable for us. The low training age is the second one. And then the one that's a little bit more difficult is the education one.
Right, because you want that person to want what we have and to value it. And they want it and value it. And then they just don't.
Yes.
To speak to the medical issue, someone reached out the other day, and to me, of all people, I was like, I wouldn't even know how to sign you up. I legitimately wouldn't know how to do it. And that happened in person a few weeks ago also. But she reached out to me because she had an MRI that found a tear and a disc herniation. And she was like, I need PT, and I see your content, and I'm local to you, and I would love to come to you guys for PT. And I was like, well, that's not what we do. Right. And I referred her to a PT in town. And then she told me she's going to refer a friend to us because they want what I described to her we do. And she's like, I'll come to you when I'm done with physical therapy. My friend needs to see you guys now. I'm like, great.
We often tell clients remotely, if we believe that they need physical therapy, we'll tell them that's what they need to be doing. And we're there to take care of you after physical therapy is done to help you get back to your ADIs.
Right. Activities of daily interest.
Activities of daily interest, because physical therapy, we all know, is meant to help clients reclaim, or patients in that case, reclaim their ADLs, their activities of daily living.
Yeah. Okay. I think my last question for you, help me. I'm more than happy to speak to people who are interested in working with us and have those conversations, but I'm not as available as they oftentimes deserve me to be if we're going to have that conversation. I get a DM, I answer it, I get another DM, and 6 hours later I answer that one. That's not fair to them. If somebody is interested in working with us in the RX department, how do they do that without sending me a DM?
I'm going to make it really simple. We're going to put the application link in the show notes.
Okay.
And reach out on Instagram, Active Life RX.
Okay.
The 2 best ways.
Easy day. Cody, did I miss anything?
That was great.
Turn pro. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.